Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Craft of the Draft video. In this episode, we're going to go through Vic Metro's National Championships, go through player by player, and give a bit of an analysis on how each player went. We're going to give some Craft of the Draft awards that we're picking ourselves for how we think players performed in the championships in general. I'm going to start. We'll read out how Vic Metro went. They went 2-2, so it wasn't probably the champs they were expecting. It was a bit disappointing. They went down to the Allies in Big Country. They started with a really impressive win against SA. They won that 38-106. They then played the Allies in what was probably deemed the grand final at that time, and what we thought, which it really wasn't in the end. But Allies won that 99-55. They had a really impressive first quarter. They kicked 7 goals, and it was pretty much game over by that point. Then they easily beat WA 127-46, which was definitely their most dominant performance in the champs, probably even more than SA. And then they lost their last game to Vic Country, which is always a big rivalry. You don't want to lose that one, and they lost that 106-75. They had the ascendancy really to start with. Vic Country couldn't convert their chances. They were up by 3 goals in the second quarter, Vic Metro, and then Vic Country kicked 9 goals in a row. So not a great end. What was your analysis of their champs, Jonty?
Yeah, my analysis of their champs is we usually expect that Vic Metro versus Vic Country is going to be the grand final, so to speak. Yeah. And probably you always generally, if you didn't know anything about the draft, you would favour Vic Metro to win most years. Yeah. But yeah, no, it wasn't to be for them. This year they exposed plenty of bottom-aged talent. And yeah, they got an opportunity, particularly in that third game, and showed some potential, which we'll go through. So that was good to see. But yeah, there were some players that boosted their stocks and some others who performed solidly. So we'll go through. The first player that we'll start with is Taj Houghton. Nathan, he played 1 game, the third game at RSEA Park.
Yeah, well, it was we both sort of agreed it was a lot of almost moments for Taj. He's definitely, it was the 1 game of exposure, which is always great for the bottom ages. It's not, you don't look at that game and think, wow, that was negative. I mean, it's an experience and something he'll take because he's been playing terrifically at Sandy. He's been building on his year. Good experience. But yeah, it was just a couple of almost moments. He got his hands on the footy, but just couldn't convert as well as he would have hoped. So it was a positive outing for Houghton. Obviously a lot to build on, but a good start for him.
And another bottom ager, Jagger Smith, who was in the starting midfield for Vic Metro. And you talk about the fact that it's often just an experience playing in Vic Metro as a bottom ager. The fact that he's in the starting midfield in the first game probably says everything you need to know about how highly he's regarded. A top 5 prospect for next year. He moves really well. He uses the footy really well. His work rate's really high. He started the season really strongly at Oakley Chargers level in the Talent League. He's been able to carry that form over to the National Championships. And yeah, just he finds the footy so easily. Like, his work rate's really impressive, and we know he's got the offensive attributes as well, which he's been able to show. So yeah, to play as much championships footy as he has and be such a prominent part of both Vic Metro and Oakley is something which will hold him in good stead going forward.
Yeah, he was extremely impressive as a bottom ager, probably one of the top in the champs. Well, moving now to Cam Nyko, he was one that I was personally pretty disappointed with. I thought the way his champs went, because he came into the champs with some very strong form at Eastern. He's a big bull in the contest, but he's agile as well, can move it well with his hands. I don't think he was able to show that very well. I thought his impact was very limited across the championships, and he had a pretty good second half in the last game, but when you look at the first couple of games, I just don't think he translated that form from Talent League into the championship. So I think for him, he'd have to have a pretty big second half of the season at Rangers, which is still possible. It was just the impact probably let him down in the end. He didn't get his hands on the footy. I don't think he was really able to show what he was capable of like he has been able to show at Eastern level. I will ask quickly what you thought, just to have 2 opinions on this one maybe. What was your thoughts on Nyko in the end?
Yeah, I really like generally his sort of rebounding ability as well. Like, there's a very strong Vic Metro half back line, I guess, that was highly regarded coming into the championships. You've got Nathan Philaktides with the athletics national background. He's been, represented his state in athletics, and Archie Roberts, who was obviously in the AFL Academy. and then Cam Nyko as well, who, viewed really strongly and can find a lot of the footy at Eastern. Just probably couldn't find the footy as easily as he can at Eastern, which is where he perhaps struggled a little bit. But yeah, no, I mean, he's still got those traits, so it'll be really interesting to see what he can do going back to Eastern. But yeah, not the championships that showed the offensive weapons that he has at other times of this season. Moving on now to Kynan Brown, who certainly did show his offensive weapons, which is probably the ability for him to set his teammates up. He understands the game really strongly and is able to put his teammates in really strong positions. He's a midfielder at the Oakley Chargers and is really clean as well. So he gets on the move around stoppages, able to read the ball off the ruck's hands and then handball out to set teammates up. So it's not necessarily what he does in terms of kicking it forward and hitting a target lace out as much as it is giving his teammates the ability and bringing them into the game to do that. So yeah, no, it was a really strong game from him. He's a smaller midfielder and probably had his best outing at RSEA Park in the third game as well against WA. So yeah, we moved from Kynan Brown to one of his Oakley Chargers teammates, Nathan Flacktides.
Yeah, Filler was really impressive. I thought I was a bit critical going into the champs of his work rate. I thought that was something he uses the ball well, but it was off the ball. I sort of watched him and I was a bit questionable. I thought all those doubts I had probably got put to sleep. He was just a really consistent performer. We know how good he is with his rebounding, his ability to take the game on and use it really cleanly. He's just a really good size for that half-back role that we've compared him a bit to Billy Wilson in terms of who's the better half-back. I think they're very close, but I think Phil is just his ball use and his ability to shrug off opponents as well. He's got a bit more size to him, but he's still lean. He was fantastic and he played every game he sort of got better and better. I thought, especially that game against WA, I thought he was ultra impressive. He's worked his way out of contest really well and got out into the middle and was great in transition. So I don't think he's done. You could say he's possibly bolted up a little bit. He's definitely shown what he's capable of and proven he's one of the best halfback types in this draft class. So a really impressive champs from him. I can't really fault any bad times he had in any of those games. So a good chance from
and
Phillip.
Probably championships he needed. We know how strongly he performed last year and didn't start the season, delivering on the potential that he'd shown necessarily with some of his ball use. But yeah, no, it was a very strong championships. Moving now to Levi Ashcroft, a midfielder forward from the Sandringham Dragons and Brighton Grammar, who does some things where you just go wowee, and obviously got some traits in terms of his upside, like his brother Will, who's now performing really well for the Brisbane Lions. But yeah, no, Levi Ashcroft, I was really impressed with his fourth game against Vic Country at Icon Park. I thought he was arguably best on ground for Vic Metro. His midfield work, his ability to go forward as well is what sets him apart. And he has moments when he's inside 50, he's able to kick a banana goal, or he's able to find ways to hit the scoreboard, able to set teammates up. But yeah, his work in the midfield was what was really impressive. And another one like Jagger Smith, who the fact he gets midfield time at all is, says all you really need to know about what the upside lies with Levi Ashcroft.
Yeah, no, he's phenomenal, and he was in that Sandy Premiership team last year, getting a run as a 16-year-old. So we know his potential. He's equally as good as Will, I think. I'd love to see the comparison in them in about 5 years' time. I'll talk about another Sandy teammate, Vigo Vicentini. It was a quieter first game, and we were surprised that he wasn't picked in the second game, but and then he went back to Sandy and played terrifically as well. So he's one I think has all the talents. He's got all the ability. He's got a lot of development left in him. I think you'd probably agree on that as well. You can see the traits are there. I think he's definitely worth looking at come the end of the year if you're an AFL club, because he's got the potential to be really impressive, and I think he showed a bit of what he showed at talent league level, which is that he's able to run as a ruckman and use the ball well on the run. He's not very sort of stiff moving across the ground. He can move with it. He did play a little bit of forward time, didn't have as much impact as he's had at talent league level, but it was an impressive enough champs to keep your eye on him that he does he plays his role really well, and there's a lot of potential with him. So it was a passable champs from Vigo, I thought, unless
Yep.
you. I
Yeah,
think that's
no,
probably
I think that's a pretty fair overview of how he went. Now moving on to a couple of bottom agers who got exposure in the third game. Nash
Yeah.
King and Murphy Reid with the squad rotation. They tried to play as many players as they could. And I think everyone except Jesse Totoli in the end got a run, who was listed with Vic Metro. And yeah, Nash King and Murphy Reid both got midfield time, so they started in the midfield. Nash King been really good at Calder level, finds lots of the footy and has some of those moments, has a really good leap and has a really good athletic profile as well. Was able to find quite a lot of the footy, particularly in that first quarter, that first half of the Vic Metro game that he played. And Murphy Reid, certainly showed when he got his hands on the ball that ability to slip through traffic and set others up when he was getting it off the ruck's hands and in the midfield was what was quite impressive. He was also very composed. So, yeah, it was just one game for Murphy Reid. But, yeah, perhaps in another year he would have got 2 or 3 because he's certainly shown that there's a lot of upside and he's probably going to be an AFL Academy talent next year.
Yeah, he's one that's just been blown. He's been outstanding, especially at Sandy level. Would have liked to see one more game out of him, but he's still did pretty well considering in that one game. I'll move to a talent that everyone's very familiar with, Nick Watson. He did what Nick Watson was expected to do pretty much. It was just turn the game. He turned the game on whenever he touched it, and I guess the most impressive outing was that WA game where he kicked 5 and just every touch turned into a goal. He's electric with it. I think it will be interesting to see. We've always said this, where he'll get picked up in the end. What club will want a player like him, because he's going to impact. It's not really a question of whether he's going to impact. It's more of what a club needs, I feel like, with Nick Watson. He was fantastic. The only negative we have of his game, and we've said this a bit, it's the ducking thing and it's that tendency to go down, which I think will be slightly unlikable AFL level, in all honesty. I think if you're smart enough to know how to get those free kicks, you're smart enough, and he's smart enough in that case. So he does it well. He gets the footy. He knows how to get it. I guess in terms of the negative, that's, if you're a supporter, that's probably what you might not like with his game. But in terms of talent, he's fantastic.
We say that as a negative for Nick Watson and negative in inverted commas, but it was also something that I noticed quite a lot with some other players doing it as well, which it's not a likely trade. I don't like seeing it. Compete for the footy, put your head over it, and if you win free kicks, make it fair, but try and win the footy the fair way, I guess. Again, fair in inverted commas, because there's question marks. Maybe you say it is fair and it's just sort of exploiting the rules. But we single out Nick Watson, but he's certainly not the only one doing it. It is making its way into the sort of underage level at all sort of levels, and it's probably not something we want to see. Moving on to Mahmoud Taha, who played 3 of the 4 games, was a late inclusion for the first game with Charlie Harrop not getting up from injury. And his pressure around the footy and his ability inside is what has captured attention both last year and this season at the Calder Cannons, and he was able to do that quite well. I think we both agree. His tackle, his pressure was really strong. He finds a way to get his hands on the footy. Spent some time inside 50 as well, which is not his preferred position, and he certainly has forward craft to build on. Be interesting to see if he does get any exposure there going back to Calder with a few games of the home and away season left, because that's something we'd love to see if he's versatile enough to take those traits that he's got inside the contest and his hardness and show them on the outside, or show them inside 50, show a little bit of that flair outside as well. But I was relatively pleased with what I saw from Taha.
Yeah, I'd agree. He's been extremely impressive at Calder level. We know his traits I think he stands out in terms of what he brings as a midfielder. I'll move to another bottom major, Tom Gross, an Oakley boy. He played against the Allies. I think that was the only game he did play in the end. But I thought he was pretty impressive. Got some time in the midfield rotation, and then he did go forward a bit. He kicked a really nice goal from like 50, a really big kick, actually. I thought it was an impressive performance. He did some really nice things. It was what you expect from a bottom major in their first game. And if you give him a pass mark, that he definitely did get that pass mark. So an impressive outing from Tom Gross. But we're going off one game, so not a lot to talk about, but it was an impressive performance from him.
Caleb Windsor's one who we've got 4 games to talk about, and was one who really impressed me on the wing. His ability to hit targets going forward was what I was really liking. It wasn't just the bomb kick, try and get it on my boot, get it 50 metres forward and hope that it hits a target. It was getting it on his boot and lowering the eyes and hitting up the best teammate, making the right decisions. And he runs the wings really hard. He's the brother of Box Hill listed Kai, who was part of Vic Metro last year. But yeah, Caleb's upside is really high with that endurance, and now he's cleaned up his kicking. So I was really pleased with what I saw her at the carnival. Kicked a really nice goal in the third game from 50. So certainly if he gets drafted, I expect that'll be what leads his highlights, unless he does something spectacular in the last sort of couple of months of the season. Yeah, a great outing, a great month or so of footy from Caleb Windsor.
For sure, he was fantastic. I'll move to Archie Roberts, who an AFL Academy listed boy, Sandy boy as well. It was his championships probably got better as it went along, probably clicked in the last game. I thought his AFL Academy games were to a much higher standard. He probably didn't get to the level he wanted to at Metro level. His efficiency was a bit lower, and that's probably what let him down at times. Still got his hands on the footy, but probably didn't use it as well as he could have. But then in that last game, we saw he was much more efficient with his ball use, was getting it out of defensive 50, had, I think, 5 rebound 50s in the end, which is at the level that we know Archie can do. And it was a championships that probably just got him a pass mark. Wasn't his most impressive, but it didn't take away from what he's shown previously. It just was not as good as he wanted it to be.
Luca Grego, another halfback. He's a Western Jets player, and I know speaking to people around the Jets, he's the most impressive Jets player that's come through in the last 4 or 5 years, they say, in terms of his professionalism. He packs his own dinners, and he'll have that after training, and it's something which, he takes a lot of care in terms of what he puts in his body and how he's fueling his body, and he gets to training 2 hours early. His pre-training craft is really impressive. We only got to see 1 game from him as a bottom major. Expect to see a lot more of him next year. He may make the AFL Academy. I expect he'll be in Vic Metro again. It didn't get a heap of the footy. It wasn't a game, like, there's not a lot to assess, just based on the fact that he probably, from a process point of view, he did all the right things playing in his preferred halfback position, or his secondary halfback position. But it's a position he's got some exposure at Western level, but just didn't quite get his hands on the footy despite doing all the right things as often as perhaps some of the other players that played his position on the day in the third game. But yeah, there's certainly some upside there to work with in terms of his ability to follow a system.
Tarkin O'Leary, back to another Dragon. He was one that, again, I can't say I was pleased. It was a bit frustrating to see he couldn't get his hands on the footy as much as he probably should have in the end. We know how impressive his kicking ability is. That switch kick is like one of his staples of his game. I don't think he really was able to display that. It's been much more evident at Sandy level than it was at Vic Metro level. He got his hands on the footy as much as he possibly could, and he used it pretty effectively. I just don't think there was a point of difference with his game in the end, that made him stand out compared to others. So it was not a negative championships. It was just, I think looking back, you probably hope he would have done just a bit more just to help his case a bit. But, I think similar to Nico, you've got that opportunity now for the last 6 or 7 weeks to still prove yourself, and he's definitely capable of that.
I guess to speak positively about him, in the Allies game, he had 1 possession up to half time and then got 14 touches in the last half. So the ability to sort of know that, hadn't been his day so far, turn it around. When the game was probably done at that point, you probably couldn't see Vic Metro overcoming such a big margin. But yeah, was still able to run out the game well. We know how good his endurance is as well. Yeah. Harvey Johnston, a teammate of his at Sandringham Dragons, the third game was what really put him back on the map after a really strong preseason, really strong first month, and perhaps a little bit quieter since then. His ability to give first option and set up his teammates to show their weapons. We know what weapons he's got when he's agile and trying to move through the contest. It's very hard to lay a tackle on him because of how well he moves. Got that basketball background, but got 29 touches off half forward. Was able to find plenty of the footy. was able to kick a really nice goal as well, was able to impact the scoreboard throughout the championships. And yeah, he was solid, I guess you'd say, in the 3 games outside of that one. And then that was his real breakout performance where he really put his name on the map at the next level. So yeah, really good to see him translate what he's shown at Sandy to do it at Vic Metro level, and probably the most touches he's gotten in the game this season, certainly at Talent League or Vic Metro level.
Yeah, best time to do it as well. I'll move to Zach Johnson, not Johnston, but Johnson. He played one game. He played that WA game. He's a bottom major for the Northern Knights. I've loved watching him at the Northern Knights level. I thought the way he plays is just a really nice brand of footy to play, and he did translate that pretty well. I thought his drive off half back, his kicking ability, it was on display, bits and pieces. Again, similar to what we said about a couple of the 06 boys. Only one game to look at, but you take it. It's an experience point, and he definitely got a pass mark. I thought he made an impact, didn't go quiet. So yeah, it was an impressive outing from him, but he's been dominating at Northern level, so I'm sure he'll continue to do that until really the end of the year and take that into finals.
Charlie Harrop is one who's captured recruiters' attention with his ability to hit the scoreboard and his ability overhead in the forward line. He's really lively and has a real presence about him inside 50. He works really hard up and down the ground, and he hit the scoreboard 3 times in Vic Metro's outing against Vic Country. He was really impressive in that regard, and he does all the right things. He seems to see the game really early. He knows what he's going to do with the ball before he gets it, and he's quite creative as well. So a good champs overall. Missed the first game due to an injury. He was a late out, but then after that, he was able to show. He's a little bit quiet, but he was still able to show his traits. And I think that fourth game, the third game that he played, ensured that there was some positives to take out of the championships. Will Lorenz played on the wing. He's an Oakley Chargers player, and is probably one who is sort of in that sort of later discussion in terms of draft conversations. But yeah, no, a solid championships from Will Lorenz. He didn't have a standout game, but yeah, performed his role well enough and showed that at under 18s level he's able to perform. Whether that translates to AFL level is the question that people have now.
Yep, and I'll move to Josh Smiley. We probably should get confirmation on this. What's a difficult last name? Josh Smil, yeah, he played pretty well. I thought that was a pretty dominant national championships on his end. I thought he did everything he could really well. We know how he's a big body and he used that well, especially off half back at times. Just was composed with ball in hand. I was pretty impressed every time he was out on the field. I couldn't really fault too much of what he did, and especially his next year as well. So he's really stated his case that he'll be one of those top prospects. He's developing really nicely, and put into that Vic Metro team, he didn't really seem out of place.
No, because he's such
at that level.
He's such a brute.
Yeah.
Yep.
So very impressive.
Just moving on now to Matt Carroll, who showed two separate games, which I think really showed different elements of his skill set. Against South Australia, a big win, obviously, for Vic Metro. He was able to keep Jack Deline quiet, and Jack Deline kicked 4 goals the next game. So a small forward he was able to keep to just 1 touch up until 3/4 time, and he finished with 4 touches for the game. So to lock him down is really impressive, and he's a defend-first sort of player. We've seen that at Sandy. And then he also provides that drive when his team gets ball in hand. He's able to get high up the ground, and he's really lively and productive coming out of the back half. So overall, a really good championships from Matt Carroll.
Yeah, well, that effort to shut down Jack Deline. Jack Deline's been ultra impressive. One of my favourites to watch overall this year. I'll go to Riley Wetherill. Again, similar to Nico, pretty disappointing championships overall. I don't think he translated at all what he's been able to do at Eastern level. His marking ability on the leads have been what's stood out for him at the Rangers. But he just probably wasn't able to convert and get those opportunities at Metro level. So again, probably goes into that category of you've got to do something this last couple of weeks to stand out. Otherwise, it probably feels like a missed opportunity in these championships.
Worth highlighting, though, he was injured for the first game, and then he wasn't selected for the last game. So he only actually played 1 game in the championships. So that certainly meant that, if it was an off day for whatever reason, he didn't get the chance to show it was an anomaly. Braden LaPlanche played 3 games. He's an Eastern Rangers player who's the clubs that like him sort of say he's high impact per possession. He, competes really strongly one-on-one and plays perhaps above his height because of the way he engages in physical contact when the ball's coming inside 50. He's shown that a little bit at Eastern, probably wasn't able to do that at Vic Metro level. I think he was able to hit the scoreboard once or twice, but wasn't able to do it consistently. Took a really big leap against the Allies, and that's something that I didn't know he had in him. But no, overall, there was probably not the consistency of performance he would have liked.
Yeah, it was not as effective as he probably could have been in the end, but did have his moments, LaPlanche. I'll move to Nate Caddy, one that a lot of people are familiar about as well. Probably, I think we've agreed, he's probably the second best key forward in this draft class, probably second to Jed Walter. I mean, Jed Walter's size is just doesn't really seem right for an 18-year-old, but Caddy, it was, again, he did his role really well. I thought he did what he was meant to do. I don't think he had any negative moments. Converted most of the time. I think there were a couple of times he's been ineffective, but I can't sit here and really fault any areas of his game. He's one that, again, doesn't really need a lot of opportunities to get his hands on the footy, and when he gets them, he'll convert. So played well. He kicked 3 in the last game against Vic Country, so he didn't kick a goal in the first half. So that, in terms of a player that just needs to turn it on at any given time, he does that. So, yeah, very impressive, and he's going to be around that top 10 mark for sure.
Yeah, played 3 of the 4 games after missing the first one with illness, Nate Caddy, and moving on to a fellow key forward in Logan Morris, or perhaps more of a third forward if he does get to that next level. He's probably in the range where Jordan Croft also sits, and also Michael Rudd, in terms of whether, I think all 3 of those different people have different perspectives on who sits first, second and third out of those 3 after the top 2 that you touched on before. But Logan Morris really turned it on in the third game. He got 4 goals, 4 goal assists, plenty of marks inside 50. And yeah, his ability to aerially impact was quite impressive. After the first 2 games, he played down back to compensate for Vic Metro's lack of height down there. And he actually performed really well in the first game, was able to take some intercept marks, reads the ball really well coming in. But yeah, when he plays up forward, he's really impressive. Was ill in the last game, which affected his output. He was virtually unsighted, but there was a reason for that. He was ill, so that was why his productivity was down. But when he's at his best, he's really strong. He's kicked 53 goals across his talent league career, dating back to last year. And yeah, that one game really ensured that he stayed on the map and could do it at the next level.
Yeah, no, he was definitely like one of the most impressive in terms of what you probably expected and what he did end up doing in the end. He was really good. Moving now to another bottom major, Luke Trainer, Sandy boy, played 1 game against WA, as did a lot of bottom majors, played that 1 WA game. Again, the category of good experience, didn't have as much impact they never expected to have a lot of impact, these bottom majors, but he did get his hands on the ball a bit in the outside and used it well, but not a lot of the ball. He'll be one next year in 12 months' time. We'll be saying completely opposite that. He was fantastic, you'd expect. So, yeah, fits into the typical bottom age category in this discussion.
Yeah, certainly. And I know Sandy's been high on what he's produced for several years as well. Will Brown, the captain of Vic Metro, is one who is a big body in the contest, and there's not many sort of 195, 196 centimetre midfielders in this draft. So that gives him a point of difference straight away, and he's a real clearance player. I guess if there was a criticism of his championships, it's just that he gets the ball at ground level, is able to use his power and use his size, but then just sort of bangs it on the boot to go forward rather than having much directive. I think there is some sort of minor injury issues, and he's sort of courageously playing through that, which have affected his ability to power through the front of stoppage. But it was a relatively impressive championship. So I remember back to that first game where he only played a half and he still led the team for clearances. So yeah, really, really good. Finds his way to get hands on the ball. Against the Allies, he was pretty strong. And then, on the weekend, just gone on Sunday against Vic Country, he again had his usual 6 clearances. So you can always rely on him to get it out, and no doubt he will at some stage be able to show that he can go out the front of stoppage. And we obviously know through his time at Sandringham last year that he can also play other positions, can sort of go forward, and I think he even finished ruck last year for Sandy occasionally. But yeah, it was a good outing, and yeah, I'll be interested to track his progress for the rest of the season. He's finished school now, so he's in that sort of Nathan Phylaktides bracket where he's got just Sandy to focus on.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm sure he'll impress in the last couple of weeks of Talent League. Another teammate of his, Josh Docking, one I've been pretty big on from pre-season on to now. Again, probably just hit the pass mark. He didn't dominate. Probably wasn't expected to dominate. He plays a lot of his footy on the wing, and when he gets it, he uses it pretty nicely. He's good at getting out of contests and sort of ducking his way through. Uses it well to get out of, get out of really contested areas. But it was probably his size that let him down. I didn't think he was able to really take it on against the bigger bodies in this national championships competition. So it'll be interesting to see how the year rounds out for him and what the focus areas are for him now, because his game dominates pretty well at Talent League level. So I guess it's making that choice of, what do you want from a player like him? I think he's got the traits, so it will be interesting to see how he rounds out the year, but just a pass mark for Docking in these champs.
Yeah, we know how clean he is, but is he able to win his own ball, and did he show enough sort of other traits and upside to get drafted, I suppose, are the question marks. Harry O'Farrell from Calder played a game. Again, another one of those bottom ages that, like you say, really, really good for the experience. But yeah, to be a key defender or a defender in general and get the opportunity to play, he was involved a little bit. We know earlier in the season he got the job on Jed Walter and was able to shut him down relatively well. But yeah, in terms of the championships, played a game and was good enough without shining or without putting the world on fire. But he'll be one who'll lead Calder's charge next year, no doubt.
And I'll move to Christian Mardini, Northern Knights product. We saw he was, he was probably second best in that backline with Ollie Murphy in terms of the productivity and the reliability they had, especially in that Allies game. Those two worked in tandem really well, and his intercept marking ability was really strong. Did he play in that last game?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he did. Probably didn't have as much impact. Vic Country's forward line was just, they turned it on. They were pretty much unstoppable. Yeah. So you can't really sit and blame any defender in that case. It was just a struggle for all of them. But I thought he just played his role really well. It was one that did everything to get him noticed, and his assets on the football field were really strong and stood out. And I think he's one that will definitely translate it into Talent League form. And it was a nice stepping stone for him just to continue building and peaking at the right time, I thought.
Really important part of the Vic Metro defence as well. There's probably not a lot of depth in terms of height in the Vic Metro regions, even if you look at other players they could have picked. So, yeah, just having that height down there as well, really important. Move on to Ollie Murphy, who won the MVP for the Vic Metro team, which was announced after the game on Sunday. I really liked his game in his championships. Yeah. He got the job on Archer Reed in the last game. He got the job on Jed Walter as well, was able to shut Jed Walter down pretty effectively after quarter time, able to not only take intercept marks, but also split some contests. At ground level, he's very good as well. He reads the game up the field and is also able to prevent his opponent from getting to dangerous positions. So then if he is outmarked, it's not an easy shot 20 out, but he has forced his opponent wide. So, yeah, he's a left footer as well coming out of the back line. We know they've always got something about them. So, yeah, as a 200-centimetre type key defender, he performed really well and probably put his names on the map in the trial game at Trevor Barker Oval, thinking back a couple of months, and was able to carry that form into the championships and a very deserving winner of the MVP for Vic Metro.
Yeah, for sure. He was a very deserving winner in the end. And if you're a regular listener to the podcast, you would have heard in the last episode, I talked about his reliability. That's probably, if you take away what he's got as a defender, that he's strong in the air, takes great intercept marks, really beats his opponent one-on-one. It's that if he has a poor quarter, he'll back it up. And that's something defenders can lack at times. They'll let their opponent get on, 5 goals and they just dominate and they can't shut him down. He might concede 2 for a quarter and he won't concede another. So he's just strong and reliable in that sense. I'll move now to Jordan Croft, Calder forward. Pretty sure he'll end up at the Bulldogs with the father-son rule. He's pretty much linked there. He was strong as well, had his moments, had his times, couldn't really fault his performance in the end. He's strong contested for someone who's pretty lean, I think. Like, I don't think he's completely bulked out yet. He's probably still got a lot of development in that area. But he's one that converts really well. His set shot kicking is pretty impressive. Good pass mark for Croft. Couldn't fault his efforts, and especially that first game against SA. What did he kick? 4 goals in the end. So
4 goals in a half. Yeah. So I mean, that really started his championships off well. Probably didn't reach those heights again, but I think that in itself showed how much potential he has, and he covers the ground so well. So that was an impressive championships. Will Green, the primary ruck for most of the championships for Vic Metro. He did miss the one game as part of the squad rotation, but when he was in the ruck, he was giving his midfielders first juice, and was winning the hit out battle really convincingly. I was quite impressed with what I saw from him. He's able to take some clunks around the ground as well. I think particularly against Vic Country, I noticed that. So he had a really strong game for Northern. Might have been midway through the carnival after the first game, and he went back to Northern for a week, and I think got 35 hitouts or thereabouts. And I think that shows what sort of form he's in. So he's peaked at the right time, I guess you'd say. Hopefully he's able to carry that on for the rest of the season.
And then I'll finish with the last player, Will Elliott, Oakley's top ager this year. I thought he played pretty well. It wasn't standout. It'll be interesting to see whether he is taken come the end of the year. I think he's played consistently. Like, in terms of what you expect from someone as a top ager, all you need to do is play consistently and show you still are capable. And I think he did that. He did hit the scoreboard. It was a pass mark. I'm just not sure. It's really interesting. It will be interesting to see come the end of the year, because what recruiters think is probably different to what we think at times, and it will be interesting to see what comes out of Will Elliott. But to finish, we've got some awards that we've chosen ourselves. We've got MVP, the best breakout player of the championships, the best bottom ager, and the draft bolter. We haven't told each other. I said to Jonty, don't tell me yours. Want it to try and be. So we didn't pick the same people. I'll start with my MVP, which is really boring because it's the one who actually won it, is Ollie Murphy. Hard to go past Ollie Murphy. You could have given it to a midfielder, but Ollie Murphy, in terms of what you expected and what they delivered, he delivered an outstanding championships. That it was just the reliability. You could always expect he was going to win his contests, and played the most pivotal role because, and I think I said to you, MVP should be, if you took this player out of the team, would they have done the same? And I don't think if Ollie Murphy was not in that team, to be honest, I mean, the games they lost, I feel like they still would have lost, but by quite a bit more. The games they had won, they probably still would have won. But in terms of the end result, I think he just made a big difference. So it was my MVP.
Yeah, and as we chatted about earlier, that productive left foot when he is able to come out of the back line is really important. And so good overhead. He's able to get to the right position, sees the game earlier than his opponent a lot of the time, and able to take intercept marks. Even thinking of the duel with Archer Reid, it was, Archer Reid able to kick 2 goals, but there's still an argument that he won the duel with what he was able to do overhead and able to take those intercept marks. I'll start with the breakout player. And pretty hard to go past Caleb Windsor on the wing. Really, really productive carnival. So I think all 4 games he probably, there was no breakout game per se, but it was just really consistent. And every single game I came away thinking he was the best winger of the Vic Metro team. And I was just always really impressed with his kicking. His first game was pretty strong in a winning game, and was probably overshadowed because there were so many really strong performances. I think of the game against the Allies as well, he had some really good moments and some really good patches, which were really important, ensuring the lead never blew out. And then against Vic Country as well, he was quite good. So, he's become one of my favourite players quite quickly. He didn't ever find a lot of the footy, and breakout, perhaps not quite breakout, because just lacked that one game. But, one that just flew under the radar, continued to do his role. And probably took his name up quite a few rungs on draft board, and really understands the wing role well because he plays it at Eastern, so holds his spread well and runs really hard.
Well, mine is not Caleb Windsor. Mine is Harvey Johnston. I thought he was the breakout of the champs. In terms of we knew what he was capable of coming in from talent league level, and it was more so if you can show that you can do this at champs level at a much higher standard, you're going to be taken very seriously. And he did that. He was so clean with the way he used the ball. He used it as effectively as he could have used it, because we talked about that at times he tend to just sort of work himself into trouble and get out of too many contests. He used it as well as he possibly could. His kicking's been fantastic, and his ball use as well by hand was terrific. He was. It's weird calling him a breakout player, but in terms of I could have easily put him as a draft bolter, but I think it was just a breakout in terms of I think people actually recognise how much he impacts the games at a higher level compared to just talent league level. So he's my breakout.
Yeah, and I had him as draft bolter. The only thing I'll add, I think that was a pretty fair overall summary. The only thing I'll add is, just the ability to bring teammates into the game with, not wanting to do too much with it. Like what you said, he didn't, in that third game, which was the breakout, I guess you would say, he brought his teammates into it really well, and his ability to find the ball off half forward, which can be a difficult position. And he also had spurts in the midfield and showed he could win the ball there as well. So, he certainly, after a quiet patch post a really good first month of the season and pre-season, he hit form right when he needed to. Yeah,
for sure. Best 06 player. There were really.
Did you have a bolter? Options. Did you have a bolter before we move on?
I'll say my bolter. Yes. Well, Logan Morris has to be Logan Morris. I thought.
Yeah.
How high? I'm not sure, but it was hard when you looked at this list. It was. It would have had to be probably Harvey or Logan in the end that really bolted up. I think it's his versatility that was the reason why he's going to bolt up so high, because we know now he can play in the back, he can play in the forward half. He's equally as effective in both those spots. So, and I think it could go up even more. I know Western are probably one of the weaker Metro teams going into finals, but if they could make even a run that takes you into at least just past the wild card round, it will just help Logan Morris's chances even more. But finishing off best 06. Really only two options, and this is the one we sort of did discuss because it was very hard to not choose the same. I've gone Jagger Smith from the Oakley Chargers, and a very impressive performance. And like you said, if you're getting midfield time as a bottom ager at this level in your bottom age year, you're impressive. You do the right things with the football. He's just really classy. Like he'll run through that midfield and just. You can rely on him in a contested situation, but just uncontested, his vision across the ground is fantastic. It's just his football knowledge is just good. He's one that he'll get the ball and he'll know how to use it in the right way. So he's my best 06 by far, and he'll be one of the best next year.
And then Levi Ashcroft was the other one, played 3 of the 4 games, and his ability to win some clearances, really explode forward, get it going to his team's advantage, and bring his teammates into the game in terms of setting them up and some score involvements, part of some really important attacking thrusts. I thought, especially against Vic Country, was his best game of the championships. But he performed really strongly overall, and also got the midfield time. We know he can also play forward as well. Has been really strong at Brighton Grammar and at the Sandringham Dragons both last year and this year. So Brisbane father-son prospect doing really strong things, who is a 2024 draft first round probable.
Yeah, for sure. And that wraps up our Vic Metro analysis of their national championships. Make sure to check out the Vic Country analysis of the national championships. They will be coming out in the next few days, or if you're watching this at a later time, it will already be out. So make sure to look out for that. So thank you all for watching. Leave your opinions of what you thought of Vic Metro's national championships in the comments, and we will see you in the next episode.